Hello to everybody. I'm really happy to greet all the participants of the International Conference on Science and Technology Research. My name is Liudmyla Gryzun. The topic of my keynote presentation today is problems of software design for training students with autistic disorders. Um, I'm happy to represent here the National University of Economics from Kharkiv City, Ukraine, and exactly Information Systems Department, where I work as a full professor and where we train pre-service IT specialists for different branches of national economy. I earned master degree in applied mathematics from the State University of Kharkiv City, Ukraine. Also, I've earned PhD and second doctoral degree in pedagogical science. The sphere of my scientific interests cover lots of fields, and one of them is functional approach to digital aids design. And the topic of my presentation today is not occasional, as it's really tackles the problems of um, digital aid design, but for students with special needs and exactly ASD students. Here you can see the outline of my presentation, and I'm going to cover the urgency of my research, theoretical framework, give example of exact ideas of theoretical framework, the example of development of e-simulator for ASD students speech boosting, and accomplish some results and prospects. Talking about the urgency of the research, I'd like to say that there are various surveys which testify that one of the global problems of contemporary education in its digital age becomes finding the ways to facilitate the learning process for students with special needs based on technology support. Special focus of experts, however, has been obtained recently by the students with autistic spectrum disorders because the number of cases and the variety of the disorders modifications has been growing for the last few years, according to studies. Thus, we deal with the global problem, and it is clear that software and learning aids market tries to respond to the set challenges of the students' social adaptation and academic training at different levels. There are a number of special centers all over the world which offer educational programs which focus on educating peer groups of the students, and at the same time teaching pro-social communication strategies to enhance social inclusion and to reduce the students' isolation and bullying. However, it is pointed out that the developed software is mostly of general educational purpose and does not cover specific cognitive needs of ASD students, one of which is poor speech and communication skills, what complicates the student's social adaptation. Thus, it is necessary to develop approaches to special digital aids design based on psychological peculiarities of these students' training. One more problem is in this aspect is connected directly with Ukrainian national localization of such digital aids and their development due to exact needs of national situation in the lines of provision as the students' education and social adaptation. Coming from this said evidence, the purpose of my research is to cover core features of the design of digital aids for ASD students and demonstrate them on the example of the development of e-simulator for student speech encouragement. The theoretical background of the work is made by the analysis of the challenges of as the students' educational practices and learning of potential benefits which might be given by the digital support for the training process of these students. Analysis of psychological and pedagogical sources allowed us to identify a number of major learning difficulties that are inherent in students with autistic disorders. According to studies, the learning difficulties are caused by students' problems in core spheres such as social interaction, communication, and imagination. And the most essential of them include generalized inefficient ability to learn, poor concentration, unawareness of dangerous situations, increasing anxiety, low level of adaptation to new social and educational situations, and many others. In addition, experts highlight the special disorders of autistic students in the formation and development of their reading and speaking skills in both native and foreign languages. In particular, the students face the problems of insufficient vocabulary, misunderstanding of the general sense of the read content, fragmentary perception of oral speech, lack of motivation to communicate with other people. On the other hand, the psychologists emphasize that speaking habits make the most essential basis for the student's socialization. Hence, these habits development has to be in focus of all kinds of educational practices for as the students of all ages. It is also important to point out some as the students' strengths, which might be helpful in the teaching. They are very well developed visual memory, considerable attention to details, a large amount of mechanical memory. In this regard, experts recommend involving in the learning process of such students visual aids and visualization tools, but it is emphasized the need of maximum organization and concentration of the students' visual field. In this context, their special attention must be paid to the digital support of as the students' education. Researchers claim the advantages of technology-supported learning of these students. The result of several studies suggests that autistic students learn faster with the help of a computer than with the help of verbal instructions. And researchers consider the reason for this is not only in the fact that the digital devices are able to hold students' attention longer, but also in the fact that mm, it uses the principle of content visualization and encourages students to focus on special areas of the screen. Also, computers provide students with multimedia content that enables to combine audio and graphical images to enrich and facilitate in such a way students' perception of text information, developing their reading and speech habits. In some research papers, it is pointed out that digital aid support is very promising for these students as they have significant kinship toward technology and interaction with e-devices, digital means, etc. In fact, the technology functions as an interface between as the student and other people, providing necessary social and emotional distancing that helps decreasing their anxiety. Another educational technology's benefit is its facility to provide tailored and individually driven digital support for ASD students who usually have their own preferences for sensory outputs produced by software as well as for the way of learning due to individual peculiarities of their disorder. As a result, due to technology's advantages, the students obtain personalized, friendly, and one-to-one digital aid to master both social and academic skills. Thus, the set benefits of digital aids for ASD students and their social and learning difficulties determine the variety of the aids and the core features of their design. As we said above, speaking habits, vocabulary boosting, and speech simulation must be in focus of as the students learning on all the levels. In this connection, it is relevant to concentrate on the advantages of exactly e-simulators as a special type of digital support in general and look precisely at the potential of e-simulators focused exactly on as the students' speech and language boosting. Um, E-simulators provide trainee with a step-by-step work work out of the learning content and allow them to obtain sustainable skills of proper actions along with parallel detection of the trainees' errors. Um, E-simulators also take into account the individual pace of students' work, enable his own managing and controlling the learning process, reduce the time of developing necessary skills, and do this process more efficient due to the great number and variety of training tasks, raise the motivation of individual educational activity. Based on the analyzed needs of speech development of students with autism and the general requirements for e-simulators, it became possible for us to formulate the following specific requirements for e-simulators for language boosting, which must be used as a basis for their design. On the one hand, the software for ASD students must be helpful for them in terms of their common and individual learning challenges, has to decrease the level of the students' difficulties and hence to make smoother the process of their learning and social adaptation. On the other hand, any kind of digital aids for ASD students, including the said e-simulators for speech encouragement, must be cooperative in terms of the students' strong points, which are considered by the psychologists to be helpful in their teaching. Thus, in the process of development of an e-simulator for language boosting for ASD students, the set of recommendations have to be taken into the consideration. Firstly, it must have a concise, intuitively clear interface that must be the same for work in all modes of the simulator. It is recommended to use the same template to support unique design of the application. The application window should not contain too much information in one spot and must focus the student's attention on certain areas of the screen. Secondly, the set e-simulator has to provide visual reinforcement of verbal content. In addition, it is essential to provide opportunities for multiple repetition of the proper exercises, which must be generated by the stimulator due to the didactic purposes. At the same time, the application must have facilities for gradual complication of the tasks and a moderate variety of exercises that would provide not only the vocabulary boosting but also speech simulation. Finally, the e-simulator should guarantee high level of interaction with friendly feedback in learning situations of success and failure to increase motivation for speech encouragement. The formulated specific recommendations for the set e-simulators might be considered as main features which are necessary to be regarded in the process of the simulator's elaboration and determine their functionality in terms of as the student's didactic needs. We would like to cover them in details on the example of the design of an e-simulator for young students speech boosting in Ukrainian and in English. Coming from the formulated recommendation, the main phases of the application design were outlined, which can be characterized in a few words as follows. At the first stage, the didactic functions of the application were specified due to their recommendation. The modes of its work were determined. Use cases diagram was built which allowed to specify the potential user's behavior. In particular, it was determined that the user is expected to initiate such use cases as to run the application, to get familiar with it, to introduce himself, to choose the language to be trained, to choose the mode of training, boosting vocabulary, building phrases, some others, and many others ways of behavior. They are listed on the screen. On the next stage, the conceptual model of the subject area as the student's language encouragement with the help of e-simulator was created. The next phase was devoted to the application interface design coming from the requirements to the e-simulator. The use case diagram and obtained conceptual model was built. On the next stage, the program realization of e-simulator was undertaken in Java language within NetBeans environment, and the exactly necessary didactic content of all modes of the e-simulator was created in collaboration with psychologists as the experts and primary school teachers. In particular, the variety of word set with visual support was picked up for the mastering in accordance with the Ukrainian and English language curriculum. Phrases builder of e-simulator was filled in the social stories for work with digital narratives were composed, etc., and so on. At the final stage, the application was tested according to the didactic and technical requirements formulated above. And finally, the application was introduced into practice of as the student's classroom and independent learning activities. Below, we are covering the functionality of the developed simulator, highlighting the features of the implementation. As a result of development, the speech simulator Speak Up, in Ukrainian it sounds Rozmовляйка, for young students with autism spectrum disorder has a concise but intuitively clear interface that enables both educators and students to interact with it efficiently from the very beginning. In addition, the interface of the e-simulator offers to get familiar with a user exactly as the student, introducing his name. Here you can see the situation which immediately makes training personalized. Immediately the e-simulator reacts on it and also gets familiar, introduces itself. And after getting familiar and choosing the language of training by the user, the application encourages the trainees to work in three main modes, which determine basic didactic functions of the application. The first mode focuses the trainee on boosting his vocabulary while learning new words of native or foreign language along with their meanings. There are two main activities provided by the simulator. The student is enabled to look through the vocabulary of the lesson along with the word's meaning and proper associative images. The activity encourages the student to learn the sets of words with visual support in his own pace, returning to the same sets of words as many times as the trainee needs. The other activity in the vocabulary mode is devoted to the word simulation with estimating of students' attempts. In particular, in this mode, the e-simulator encourages students to recollect the learned vocabulary with immediate feedback and with friendly processing of the situations of success and failure. Thus, the realized mode of the e-simulator helps students to get used to situation of training with estimation, allows to decrease their anxiety, which is essential for the students, and motivates them for vocabulary boosting. An important function realized in the simulator is the opportunity for the trainee, with the help of his tutor, to edit existing vocabularies, to fill them with their own sets of words and save their own vocabulary in files along with proper associative images. Uh, this ensures the adaptability of the simulator to the needs and requests of the trainee, because he can work out the words which seem for him exactly to be useful and important. It is possible to predict the growth of the student's motivation to remember and use exactly these selected by him words. In this way, the student can make their learning the most comfortable and individual, as well as avoid the fear of testing of their knowledge. And the situation of learning, training, and control becomes familiar, safe, and psychologically comfortable for the student. The next mode, which is realized in simulator, is aimed at progressing the ASD students' skills of composing sentences of various types. And on this purpose, the simulator implements a so-called phrase builder, which offers the student two main types of speech learning activities. It encourages the student to build sentences according to the scheme and compare their own sentence with the sample, as you can see it here. The second type of activity offers students to choose from the suggested members of the sentences correct ones, as well as to build their own phrases and check their correctness. Um, the fourth mode of training, the simulator provides an opportunity for students to work with so-called social stories and have social and educative content of these social stories contribute to the effective adaptation of as the students to society. The student is offered two main stages of processing the stories: reading the story followed by its analysis while answering suggested questions, or reading the same text with pictures instead of some words that students must recollect and enter, or choose them from the suggested words. At all of the simulator's modes, it is realized the facility of monitoring the correct answers with immediate feedback in the form of scored points, displaying the results of training. The aid also efficiently handles situations of success and failure, which provides a favorable emotional background, creates a friendly atmosphere of training, and helps to increase motivation to practice language and speech skills. Thus, the depicted above functionality of the developed digital simulator for ASD students' language encouragement meets the core features of such aids design, which were formulated above. Summarizing our work, I'd like to say that the work and presentation in total covers essential peculiarities of the design of digital aids for ASD students according to with its aims, and the distinguished features which are essential in the process of the digital aids design are demonstrated on the example of the development of an e-simulator for ASD students speech encouragement. Uh, as a result of the training of using of this developed e-simulator for ASD students, we have, in summarizing our monitoring, we have to say that the simulator promotes concentration of their attention and relies on increased visual memory of such students. It also allows to boost significantly the vocabulary of both native and foreign languages via multiple repetition and involvement of both verbal and not verbal learning. It provides opportunities for gradual complication of tasks and the moderate variety of exercises, which allows not only the expansion of vocabulary or by memorizing words, but also the speech simulation by constructing their own sentences, processing social stories with visual support, and etc. They realized an option to repeat different but similar learning situations studied at their own comfortable pace help to reduce the students' anxiety, simplify their adaptation to unfamiliar tasks and situations, which we also could monitor while using this developed application in their classroom activity and in the independent activity of the students with their tutors. A function of editing by the student offered vocabularies ensures the adaptability of the simulator to the needs and requests of the trainee and enables the student to handle his own process of training. In fact, this function represents the developed e-simulator as a computer shell for design of individual simulators of ASD students' speech training. And actually, this function also was used by the authors of this work in order to uh, adapt this e-simulator for not only training the speech of languages, but also boosting the vocabulary in computer science classes and mm, boosting their abilities to work in this area, not only in language training. Uh, that's all for today. Thank you for your attention. I'm ready to answer your questions. Thank you.